I use my Disney Plus subscription like everyone else. I load up the app, watch the 1967 animated classic The Jungle Book, exclaim, "Yep, still good," and go about the rest of my day. But recently, after watching my 4-year-old self's favorite movie, I took a look at some other Disney movies from that era and saw something familiar.
Blue?
I mean, why else would I look at Robin Hood? Rotoscoping, a technique that allowed Disney to more accurately mimic movement, and, more infamously, it allowed them to work really hard to be lazy. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, and it kinda is, but let me first explain exactly what rotoscoping is. Rotoscoping is the process of tracing over pre-existing footage, usually live action, to make lifelike animations. A more modern example of rotoscoping can be seen with how lightsabers work in Star Wars. In the first 6 movies, Lucasfilm used metal rods attached to the saber hilts whilst filming fight scenes, and in post-production would animate a colored blade, giving them their iconic look and making sure the effect was exactly where it needed to be. Disney first took advantage of this technique when making their first animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, by animating over live-action footage, ensuring that the characters' movements would look realistic. In 1942, however, Disney did something a little more nefarious with this method. Disney's 6th animated feature, Saludos Amigos, was the first Disney film that used rotoscoping not to animate over live-action footage, but to copy a scene from an older short, How to Ride a Horse. And from here we were off to the races, copying previous animations in almost every animated feature they made. One of the most egregious examples of this is the 1973 film Robin Hood, which took animations from The Jungle Book, Snow White, The Aristocats, Alice in Wonderland, and Cinderella. Robin Hood also took character designs from some of these films, with the most blatant being the design of Little John just being Baloo dressed up as Peter Pan. So why was Disney able to get away with this? Well, back when the bulk of these films first came out, home video didn't really exist. The VHS tape wasn't introduced to the Western market until 1977, and even then, it was mostly just used as a way for people to record TV shows they couldn't watch live. So because of that, when films were pulled from theaters, they were expected to see the light of day ever again, save for a few re-releases. Whilst this practice continued up until 2009's The Princess and the Frog, it definitely slowed down in the 80s with the rise of home video and Disney's decision to release their older films on VHS under the Walt Disney Classics line. Starting off with the 1981 home video release of, oh hey, it's that thing I'm supposed to be talking about. Anyway, with those 2 pages of background out of the way, let's talk about Disney's Robin Hood. Close enough. So the basic story is Robin Hood steals from the rich, gives to the poor, and he does so by shooting good and disguising gooder. Whilst the main story sees Robin doing just this, he also has a side quest called Marrying Maid Marian, which, whilst having no real effect on the poor citizens of Nottingham, serves as a great way to stick it to the main antagonist, Prince John. Also, she's the only other fox in the movie, so it was kind of inevitable they would end up together.
Are they related, since they're the only 2 foxes?
Well, I mean, she's apparently royal, and the royal family is known for inbreeding, so...
I'm concerned. Yeah. Oh no, Step Fox, what are you doing?
Anyway, Prince John. Whilst his older brother, King Richard, was off on a crusade to regain land that was never rightfully his in the first place, John usurped the throne, imposed crippling taxes onto the lower class, and made it his #1 goal to arrest and execute Robin Hood, going so far as to attempt to execute Friar Tuck.
No, I'm not a religious man, but I'm pretty sure hanging a friar is a one-way ticket to hell.
In the end, Robin Hood thwarts the prince, marries the maid, and the king comes back from his brutal killing spree. On to the more interesting part of this film, the plagiarism. Robin Hood lifts a lot from older films, starting with the very opening, when Disney looked at the opening book intro from The Jungle Book and asked,
"What if it was
green?"
Oh. That's it.
Green.
Oh, come on.
Now, a book magically opening to kick off the story didn't originate with the Jungle Book and was actually used in a lot of early Disney films. However, usually when they did this, they designed a new book rather than just changing the color and title. Speaking of design, character designs were also taken from previous Disney films, with a lot of minor characters taking design cues from characters that shared their species, occupation, or height, oddly enough. My character design is actually loosely based off of AEW's Marco Stunt. This joke isn't funny, but I'm keeping it in. There are two main characters, however, that look a lot like characters from, you guessed it, the Jungle Book. First off is Sir Hiss, and whilst for the majority of the film the only similarity he and Ka have are them both being snakes that are sick of everyone's shit, the animators ripping off the hypnosis eyes early on really solidifies the link between these two characters. And the worst part is, they only do it once. It doesn't work, and it has no real bearing on the rest of the film. They seemingly shoehorned in a shot to trace over, and it didn't even do anything worthwhile. Now, the other main character they did this with was the previously mentioned Little John, and if overall character design wasn't enough, they also traced over the majority of his dancing from I Wanna Be Like You, and even used the same voice actor, Phil Harris.
Good guys are bad guys. You know, are robbing the rich to feed the poor.
Rob?
Going back to the trace dance moves from I Wanna Be Like You, and we have some of our greatest examples of tracing over older animation condensed down to one scene. Most of the time when Disney would copy over old animation, the actual examples would be brief and isolated. Examples in Robin Hood include the chase scene from Alice in Wonderland, the wedding bells and mice throwing rice from Cinderella, and the elephant getting his trunk grabbed in the Jungle Book. However, the song The Phony King of England has an accompanying dance number that takes animations from 3 previous films. This scene takes from Everybody Wants to Be a Cat from the Aristocats, the Silly Song from Snow White, and of course, I Wanna Be Like You from the Jungle Book. Copying over animations here and there is one thing, but with such a huge chunk of this scene being taken from other films, it makes the whole number lack its own identity. Overall, I'd say Robin Hood is an okay movie that lacks any real identity. Now, having this point of view on the film is inherently flawed, as I am unable to see it the way I was meant to, and the knowledge that so much of this is taken from other films definitely affects how I perceive it. I would strongly consider these negative biases if the rest of the film was more interesting. It's fun to just look at these copied shots and just riff on Robin Hood as a whole, but the film itself isn't really memorable or fun. Whilst writing this, I tried to search for a part that really stuck with me without involving another film or a joke that my friends or I made. But it's just not there. There's a reason Disney doesn't really showcase this one. It's a movie where the production is more interesting than its contents, and that's not a good thing. So yeah, that's Disney's Robin Hood. How do I wrap this up? Okay, hold on.
What the?
Before you go, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on all of my social media. And yeah, take care.